Okay, it's time for another quick lesson, and this one is on how to move things in Eve, specifically you and your ship. Now, the most basic one I want to talk about is just the fact that you can double click in space, double left click, and you will head in that direction. This is kind of handy when you want to actually do things or just fly in a specific nearby direction. Now, if you want, you can also do movement in relation to objects around you. So as you saw, I just dumped a cargo container behind me, and I can select that. It's back there. I just dropped a bit of rock, so to speak, and I can right-click and say orbit that at 500 meters. And I'll immediately turn around, head back towards it. When I get to it, start going around it 500 meters off, give or take, depending on my speed. If I'm going too fast, it's impossible for me to make the corner, and it might be a wider circle. So you can move directly to. This is also handy if you go to the upper section here. You have approach, you have orbit. You can actually take a look at the damn thing if you want. Boop. And these skills are handy to being able to move in relation to stuff that is near you. If you are worried about things that are a little further away, then you start using a second kind of movement. So right now the first one is double click or use the movement in relationship to things that are nearby. If it's further away, you notice my choices changed here. I no longer have approach, I have align to, which means I point in the direction of, in this case, the coaster to station, and I start flying in their direction. But they're 1.09 AU. Each AU is 150 million kilometers. I'm moving a third of a kilometer a second. 150 million kilometers is gonna take a little too long. So I have to use the second method, which is inter-system movement, also known as warping. And I can right-click the thing and say warp to within 100. And once I'm at full speed, which I already was, and aligned, which I already was, I enter warp and travel all the way there. You can't stop warp once you're in warp. You're committed to the ride until you get to the far side. Only way you can get out of it is if somebody uses a bubble to pull you out of warp, or if you run out of power halfway along, which is a handy trick that some people used to use. So there I am by the station. I want to go back to where I was before, which I had bookmarked a little site for myself.
Active.
Which leads us to another thing, bookmarks. If as you're in warp, you hit Control B and then enter, you bookmark a spot along the path that you just were on. This is handy for being away from everything. So I can now, if you notice when I exit warp, there's now a spot in the coaster system because I didn't bother naming it. If I warp to it, I'll do a 180,
drive active,
turn around, and warp to that spot. Almost every system I'm in, I tend to make a bookmark so that I have a little safe spot to run and hide if things start to go south. Some place that they will have to use scans to track me down, which might give me a moment to get my head together and figure out what to do next. So as you see, I'm 1 AU from, I'm still a short distance from the Federal Academy and a short distance from where I was before. I've got a bookmark, I've got a nice safe spot. So as I said, I can pick something, align to it, or I can also choose warp. Now if I do it up here, you notice I've only got the choice warp to within within 0, which is not something I want to do. If you right click, you can actually set the default, but me, I always leave that at 0. And if I decide I want to warp to it at a different range, then I use right click on the object, warp to within, and I can warp to within 100 kilometers of that site. This is not a smart move because there's going to be bad guys there, but at 100 kilometers, I'm hoping they can't shoot me before I can get the hell out of there. So our movement so far, double click and relationship move within the grid, i.e. close up, and then warp to 0 or warp at range, when you're at a distance other than that. So those are both inner system. But there are times where you're going to decide, I want to go see the stars and I don't want to be stuck in coaster for the rest of my life. I want to go places, I want to do things. By the way, coaster is where I am. So you decide you want to go elsewhere. Seeing as this is for rookies, I'm not going to talk about using jump bridges or Titan bridging or anything like that. That's a lesson for when you get down to null. For now, we're just talking about being able to move through the star systems. So if I bring up a map, this is a map of the star system. I did that through F9. I can close that. If I do F10, I get a map of all of New Eden, which is in and of itself impressive. And every one of those little dots is a star system. So if I click that one, for example, and zoom in on it, and I have no idea how to say that system, and Nakanaman, whatever, if I can right click and say set destination, and I've now chosen to go all that way if I decide to follow. I open up route and I can see that 21 jumps. By the way, the little A above the system name gives me the route. The little star thing turns that on or off. And if I want to see missions, I hit that button. But for now, I don't want to see missions. So I can see that there are 21 jumps I can make to get all the way to Inandakanamamam. First stop would be the next system over, which is Algaville. Now the other fun thing is I clicked at the top of the column for icons, and you notice that exactly one icon is yellow. That's the next gate on the system. So I can select that and say go, go, go.
Warp drive
and notice
active.
I did not say warp to or approach. I said jump. Jump is a really handy one because it warps me to the gate and takes me right through the gate immediately afterwards. So this allows you to move a lot faster than, well, I'll get to Autopilot in a second. I disapprove of Autopilot. I save it for last to show you why. So we're going to go 2 jumps over to from here through Algaville, and from Algaville through to the next stop, whatever it is along the line. And again, seeing as I got sorted, notice top one, yellow gate. Click.
Warp
I could have
drive
held down
active.
D, and on I go. Next gate. So if you want to travel all the way across the star systems or to some other place, you right-click the name of a system, set destination, groovy, you're on your way. You get there, it will stop. Now you can see that I've gone from Coaster to Algogil, and now I'm going into Casaganan. Now what would happen if I said, damn it, I forgot my stuff. I left things back in Algogil. I don't want to go into a 0.1 system in a adventure. How do I find my way home? Well, first you got to decide where is home. One way to decide where home is hit Alt-T. Alt-T shows you your personal assets. In other words, where all your stuff is. Seeing as this is a new character, I don't have a lot of stuff in a lot of places. So Coaster, you can see I got rocks and various things I got. So I can right click and say set destination, and notice that list now turns back to 2 things. I can use this to set destinations. Now I did say I want to talk about using Autopilot.
Warp drive
Now,
active.
if I was doing this naturally, I'd see that, oh look, Algogil is the gate was right there. I could just turn around, go back through the gate, and warp my merry way all the way back to the station. But I want to make a point. So now we've talked about moving inside a grid. Grid is what's in the immediate neighborhood of things that you can shoot and things that will shoot you. Inside a system, that's the planets, the sun that you're in, and the gates. And then inner gate travel. Now the recommended method is the way I did, or warping to a gate and then choosing whether you wish to jump through or not. If you're in a fleet, that becomes a very important skill. Isn't that nice? I'm tethered. Okay, so bottom left of the HUD, there is a button called Autopilot. It also can be done by Control-S. This is why you don't use it.
Autopilot engaged.
Okay, so I have the route set for going back to Coaster.
Warping to Stargate. Warp drive active.
It took her that long to just figure out, oh, we want to go back. Now I want you to notice we're warping to Algajil Gate to go back. And when I hit jump on the control panel, doing it manually, I got to the gate, bang, right through. Hit jump again, got to the gate, bang, right through. The time spent was time spent on the just on the warp
Stargate.
between systems, the jump between systems. I landed 15 kilometers from the gate. I am now moving at about 370 meters per second towards the gate to get through it. So I am spending this extra time as a vulnerable target traveling at a gate. I have also, by landing 15 kilometers away, signaled to everybody around, hey look, I'm not paying attention, and they have about, I don't know, 30 seconds to decide whether they want me dead or not. Now I do jump through. And then autopilot kicks in again.
Warping to Stargate. Warp drive
and
active.
It will do the same thing. It will add an extra 30 seconds there, about 45 seconds, to my travel time for every system I go through, because I'm letting the computer land me 15 kilometers out from the gate and then slow boat in a parade past anyone there to get to the point. So it is far, far faster to do it manually, unless you like wasting an extra 3/4 of a minute every time you want to go through systems. If you're doing 10 systems, this does start
Approaching
to add up.
Stargate.
The only point it is good for is if you have to go to the bathroom or something like that, or go get a coffee, which I could do with right now. But other than that, autopilot is not the best way to travel. It is a lazy way to travel, and it's an invitation to get ganked. So we've talked about moving around. Now I didn't want to talk too much about fancy moving around. When you get into tactical, you'll talk to some people who actually like to move, do things like spiraling
Autopilot
in, trying to
jumping.
keep the transversal so that they are harder to hit. And all of these are valid tactics, and the good pilots will be able to tell you about them.
Autopilot
I never claimed
disabled.
to be a good pilot. I'm just a slightly knowledgeable one who's willing to make a video or two. So, last thing, did that. If you got questions, put them somewhere in the comments down below. I do appreciate questions. If this video sucks, feel free to tell me. I don't care. Your opinion is nice, I suppose. But, the last thing I want to mention is, even in overview, the arrow buttons on your keyboard work. If you actually insist on flying the ship manually, you can. Do a barrel roll, Fox. You can do what you want with it, but you actually can fly the ship manually. It's just not exactly the best way. The one other thing I did want to mention offhand is if you hit Alt-1, you get a tactical overview. Alt-2 is the view that I use the most, and Alt-3 is actually the view right from, call it the first person view if you want. And some people actually like to have a first person view to pretend that they're flying the ship directly rather than a view from outside. First person, third person, use what you want. Tactical, Alt-1, is nice because those rings are indicators of specific things. How far your drone control range is, or how far your guns are mining. If you see I hovered over my miner, that's how far my miner reaches. Hover over my gun, that's how far my miner reaches, because I haven't got a gun on this bloody thing. But these are ranges that you can see. That's probably, the dotted line's probably targeting range. So you get to see things from some people like that. Me, I like this view, and I use my overview for being able to choose what I'm shooting at. That's about it for basic moving. If you have more questions, ask them, and I'll try to answer them either in the comments or directly. This has been another post from You Know, because the more you know, the better off you are. Thank you. Goodbye.